Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today we have on the show with us Tony Whatley. Tony, how you doing, man?
Hey, Evan, thanks for having me on the show, man. I can't wait to bring some value to your audience, and I'm honored to be here, Dad.
Yes, I love it. So Tony and I, a little backstory, Tony and I actually met at Lewis Howe's Summit of Greatness last year in Columbus, Ohio. Phenomenal event. A lot of A players there, including Tony himself. It was awesome to meet him there. But a little background on Tony before we get started. Tony is an entrepreneur, business mentor, best-selling author, podcast host, and speaker. He's best known as co-founder of LS1Tech, an online automotive community which grew into the largest of its kind. This website grew to over 300,000 registered members, and we were just talking right before we jumped on about how important it is to cultivate that community in order to, build an actual active, striving, thriving community. And that was later sold for multiple seven figures in only 5 years. Amazingly, it was just his part-time business. So Tony has become known as the side hustle millionaire after his book with the same title became a #1 bestseller on Amazon. He also teaches entrepreneurs how to start, scale, and sell their business within his podcast and consulting brand, 365 Driven. So how about that, Tony? Let's just dive right into your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you for the intro. It sounds like a lot of accolades, but I want the listeners to understand that it didn't always start that way. I actually started with a very humble background. My parents were both blue-collar workers their entire lives until they retired. My mom worked in the public school systems, cafeteria lady, and my dad was a military vet, Vietnam for U.S. Marines. He got out and he worked in the chemical refineries the rest of his life here in the Houston area. So the thing is that both of my parents being hard workers and disciplinarians, they taught me that the value of hard work and doing the things to get what I needed. So if I wanted to get something, they said, hey, go out there and figure it out. We didn't have allowance. We didn't have all these kind of things. I mean, basically, we always lived in flippers and fixer-upper homes our entire life. So I valued the things that we had. We took a lot of pride in the things we had. We learned how to restore things. Also started to think about how I could see the potential in those things and then people eventually and how to transform people. So that's my background. I think I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been that kid that was flipping candy and doing things and buying stuff and trying to sell stuff. I was a kid at 12, knocking doors to mow yards, wash cars, whatever I could, because I saw that other kids had the skateboards and the video games and the bicycles. And I was like, well, how do I get that? My parents aren't going to get that for me. Should I wait till Christmas? Or no, man, I go figure out how to do things. So that led to me really just having what I call the employee mindset, just like I learned from my parents. That's how most of middle America is. We get stuck in a routine where we think that we got to trade our hours for dollars. So we go get a job, we get some more education. I've got an engineering degree to go chase six figures. And basically we think that we always have to contribute our time to get a paycheck. And that's where I started to disrupt that, because I was working 3 jobs at a time, trying to get ahead, trying to get out of debt, trying to do things better, trying to get a lifestyle that I dreamed about. And it was just killing me. Like that whole 24/7 hustle and grind that we see nowadays, especially glamorized on the internet. It's a terrible mindset to have. I started to figure out, how can I do things better? How can I earn more money while I sleep? How can I earn money while I don't have to show up somewhere? And nowadays, with the beauty of the internet, online businesses, and even some of the services out there, you don't have to show up. So I really started to disconnect time and money. And that's how I kind of arrived at the things that I've done.
That's phenomenal, man. Well, I love the fact that, you started off by saying that, anybody can do this and you came from humble beginnings. And that's exactly right. It just takes that mindset of saying, hey, looking outside of the current situation you're in and saying, hey, I deserve better. My family deserves better. I deserve a better life. And how can we turn this on its head and say, it's not about trading time for money. It's about making your money work for you.
That's right. That's right. And I think that a lot of people fall into that trap of, we learn this way because when we're children, we learn from teachers, we learn from our parents, we learn from our friends. anyone that's in our immediate proximity teaches us this, like, hey, Evan, you got to go get good grades, Evan. Hey, Evan, when you get good grades, you're going to go to college, Evan, get a degree. You got to get a degree to get a good job, Evan. Maybe someday you're going to make six figures and you're going to be super successful. You're going to be so rich at $100,000 a year. That's the dream. Your mom didn't do it. Your dad didn't do it, but you know what? You can do this. And then basically you get there and you make 100,000. You go, I don't really feel so rich. I mean, what was all this about? Am I really doing something that I love doing? Or did I follow the dreams that my parents put into my head and just kind of follow through with what they were recommending? I think that a lot of times we find that people get in their late 20s and mid 30s. They come to find people like me who are business coaches, and they discover that they're not even doing the thing that they were ever intended to do. They were just following somebody else's path, somebody else's recommendation, somebody else's dream. And then they go, this is why I'm not happy. I'm making money, but I'm not happy. I'm not doing what I need to be doing. And they start to create this perceived status or social standing based on the job title that they have. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm an attorney. Oh, I'm an engineer. Oh, I'm a manager of this company. And you start to wear that badge because you think that society reinforces that. Like, oh, they're giving you the golf clap because you got all these prestigious titles. But the thing is, you're dying inside, dude, because you're not doing what you should be doing. And the thing that you should be doing could actually lead to you a higher level of success. People don't realize that.
So how did you come across this idea of like, hey, I can do something different, or, go outside the corporate life?
I think I've always been someone who is a daredevil, just for context. So even as a kid, I was the one putting extra bricks under those bicycle and skateboard ramps, jumping off of roofs, doing crazy things. I remember watching the TV show Jackass, thinking like, that's easy stuff, like no big deal.
It's nothing.
But that's who I am. I've always been a daredevil. I'm a speed junkie. I love racing cars over 200 miles per hour and doing things. So I've been a little bit on the risk side of things, but I'm also someone that measures risk. And I just think about that. So with business, how do we apply those same principles of taking risk to business? Well, entrepreneurship is about taking risk, because we've all heard it. There's no risk, there's no reward. And that's absolutely true. That's not just some cliche phrase that we repeat and just go, oh, no risk, no rewards. Guys, the people who have received the highest rewards in this world are the ones that were willing to take some risk. You showing up 9 to 5 to work at a job, you're taking very little risk, like hardly any risk. That's just a job. The person that owns the company is taking substantial amount of risk by employing you, by putting out a product, by dealing with customers, by having to market, by spending money to make money. Those are the risks. Those are the people that get the biggest rewards. So you got to think about how to get there. It's basically, I started to think like, who are the people that I admire? Who are the people out there living the life that I actually dream about? What are they doing? Can I deconstruct the things that they've achieved and figure out the steps that they use to get there? Because here's the thing, guys, information is readily available. It's never been easier to become successful. The problem is most people can find that information by reading books, listening to podcasts like yours and mine, and they can hear these things, but they don't apply it because they don't have the confidence, they don't have the accountability, and they don't have the mentorship to push them through those gates.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's funny you mentioned that you were looking for, your role models, and that's something I actually did similarly when I was, on the path to leaving my job and starting my own company. It was very much like, okay, who are the, 8 to 10 people that I look up to, I admire, what are they doing to push the needle? What do I admire about those people? And what is it that they would do in a situation like this? And taking the Think and Grow Rich Napoleon Hill mindset of like having your board of directors and having them give you feedback on each situation that you come across.
Dude, that's huge. And that's a great tip. I want to touch back on that because you got to think future forward. That's what I always tell people. You got to think future forward. You have to envision the better version of yourself. And I'm not talking about 10 years out because that can be very hard to understand. We evolve, we change pretty quick. I think 1 to 3 years minimum. Like, who do you want to be in 3 years? Like, let's really visualize that. And if you're listening to this, what level of health are you in? What is the quality of the relationships, friendships that you have? What is the financial success that you've achieved? What are the things that you would like to accomplish by then? And really start to visualize who you can become and who you can be and how you're going to act and how you're going to react to all the social stimulus out there. What would be the person that you would admire? And you start to think like that future version of yourself on a day-to-day basis starting today. So what would that future version of yourself say when you tell yourself, I don't feel like going to the gym today, Evan? Or Should I really eat this really crappy carb loaded meal with a bunch of crap in it and chemicals and stuff? Should I really be drinking these energy drinks? Would that future better version of yourself say yes or no to every single small decision you make today? And the funny thing is that over time, when you start to operate like the future better version of yourself, making simple decisions on a day-to-day basis, guess what? You become that person. When you start to operate and think like that person that you want to become, you become that person.
You're exactly right. And I think it takes that mindset. And a lot of people are thinking negatively about the future, right? Like they're thinking, how am I going to screw this up? What is going to go wrong? How am I going to lose my job, or how am I going to lose this money or lose this house or whatever? Like I'm going to screw something up. And that's the mindset that people need to wipe out of their mind and just say, hey, look, like remember your future forward version of Evan or Tony. And what would they do in this situation?
That's huge. People definitely keep a death grip on anything they currently possess, and they're not willing to put that same amount of love or energy or passion into something that they can earn. So great example of that. Let's say that, Evan, that you're sitting there and you're going through your wallet and you notice that $100 bill is missing. And maybe that wallet was sitting on a desk or something, and you basically came back and it's missing $100. You know the fury that you feel in that moment? Like, who stole my $100? And I hope the listeners resonate. You've got a purse or wallet, and you're just wanting to go around and just kill somebody. And you're like, who robbed me? Who stole it? And you're asking people, have you seen my $100? Have you seen my $100? You're just going and spending all this energy, and you got all this emotion wrapped in. That's the death grip on the things that we possess that we're afraid to lose. That's human nature. Understand that that's normal reaction. But here's the other thing. You won't spend 1/10 of that energy and that 1/10 of that energy and passion to go out and earn $100.
Yeah, that's powerful. I'd never thought about it that way. That's really powerful. And you're exactly right. I mean, there's not enough, headspace put toward that of, how can we actually create value and create what we want instead of holding on so desperately to what we already have.
Yeah, and people would be willing to die over stupid stuff that they lose instead of putting the same level of effort into something that they can gain. And when you started talking about all the things that people lose, that's definitely the scarcity mindset. You talked about Think and Grow Rich, great book. It's fixed versus growth mindset, scarcity versus growth mindset. The scarcity mindset is what most people fall into, and it's because society's beaten that into their head, and they started to just really program their subconscious brain to believe those kind of self-limiting beliefs. And the thing is that, here's the thing, if you really find yourself worrying about losing something, or that's the money that you're investing, or the time, or the relationships, or things like that, start to really focus on what's the potential upside. If I do this, if I start this business, what is the potential upside of that versus the potential loss? And start to compare those two. Let's say you could go start a company and you do it for like $2,000. Well, the downside is you could lose $2,000. It happens a lot. The upside, you make millions of dollars. So focus on the potential upside. And when you can start to catch yourself in those moments of despair, talking yourself out of things, really look at the upside. Go, what is the potential victory here? And focus on that. And here's the other thing you need to focus on. Everybody's got challenges at any given day. We all have problems. We all have things going on in our background, no matter how positive minded we are. And you think that these things are just giant hurdles to overcome, and you don't think that you can do it. Guys, if you're listening to this, guess what? You're alive. You've already gone through some tremendous adversities and challenges your entire life. So really, again, do this context where you're comparing the current challenge you have, which may be, man, I need to find rent this month. That might be your challenge. But then look at the things that you've survived. I've survived domestic abuse, bullying, these kind of things, being laid off for 6 months, being huge in debt. Like, put things in perspective. A lot of times we focus on the problems that we have on our day-to-day basis, and they are minuscule compared to the things that you survive. So again, think about that.
And I can relate to that in a degree because, I think we all also forget about our accomplishments as soon as they're done, right? Like, the last year for myself and my fiance, we've made massive moves on our business, on our investments, on our podcast, new house, everything's upgrading in our life. We're living a great life, and we're very blessed and grateful for that. But sometimes I tend to forget that. Yeah. And it's amazing. It's powerful. It happens to all of us, but we need to remind ourselves because that will occasionally creep into our mind. So we need to just be aware of it first off, and then realize, look, start from a place of gratitude, start from a place of like, hey, look back at all these things that we have accomplished, that we have been blessed for, and start there, and then realize, okay, I can accomplish anything if we got through that and we're here today.
Yeah, and here's a little tip. I love that because I do the same thing. I have a victory log is what I call it. Go get an app like Evernote, something that's basically a Post-it note that's inside your phone to keep notes. And I want you to, if you're listening, go create a victory log. Go create a tab and look about filling this Post-it note, basically virtual Post-it note that you always have with you, with all the accomplishments that have created some kind of happiness or joy within your life, whether that was your marriage or the birth of your child, or you graduating something or winning awards or doing something. Just make a chronological thing. You can go back even with your childhood, but make a list of these things. It's a living list that you'll keep adding to as you start to have more achievements that make you proud or feel some happiness. Here's the thing, when you start to see that list and you have a self-doubt moment, you can always take out your phone and look at that and go, these are the things I achieved. It's going to reframe your mindset. You're going to think about like when you're nervous, or maybe you got to go make a killing on a closing a big deal, or go standing on a stage, or getting on a podcast, or doing something that requires courage. When you have that log, you pull it out, you see the things that you've achieved, and you start to put yourself back in those moments of time, you're going to feel a whole lot different instantaneously. You're going to be like, man, I got this. I've done this.
Yeah.
I've got this. Keep that victory log with you.
That's awesome. I'm going to do that myself. That's guys, make sure to put that into action, because I think that will truly shift mindsets. Immediately as soon as you start looking at that. I love that, because it'll like invoke this like memory log of like, hey, this is how I felt when I was like that, and it'll remind yourself like, hey, I can actually accomplish a lot out of based on what I've already accomplished. That's powerful. So take us through. So you were in the corporate job, you were very successful there. As far as creating that side hustle, what was that like, and how did you put that into action?
So one of the motivating drivers for me to get an engineering degree, it's mechanical engineering, is because I have a passion for cars. I've always been a car fanatic. Like even as a kid, I was drawing cars in the blank pages of coloring books instead of coloring in the book. So I have a love for cars, still do. And I got the engineering degree because it learned a lot about the systems of automotive. I said, I would like to maybe go live in Detroit and work for the big three and design Camaros, Corvettes, things like that, Dodge Vipers. And so I graduated and I started doing these phone interviews with people up there, and they were literally like paying half of what oil industry pays. And here I am in Houston, the oil capital of the world, with all these different jobs that were literally paying double what the automotive community paid. So I said, you know what? I think I'd rather just stay here in my home city and make twice as much money and be able to buy the cars that I would go design instead of go out there and work in Detroit, which was pretty miserable compared weather-wise and everything. I said, okay, so I'm just going to be an oil and gas professional. And I went into project management. And the thing is that I still wanted to be involved in cars. So I said, okay, I want to start some businesses in the automotive space. And then that's my love. And then there'll be kind of this thing I do just to be involved in it. So I didn't really think about making millions of dollars, Evan. That's one thing I want to highlight, because a lot of people focus on the money. They think, hey, I want to be a millionaire too, and I want to start this business. And they only think about things that can make $1 million. And that's not a bad long-term thought. But the thing is, if you don't have the passion or the purpose or the profession in something that can actually be monetized to eventually get there, you're going to get passed by people like me who are operating within their passion. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people out there, especially we see people in the network marketing and multi-level marketing, they're peddling stuff that they don't even use themselves, or they couldn't even afford themselves. They don't really have a lot of passion or energy behind that product or service, but they're trying to sell it to other people. But there's other people within that same sector that love that product and, or have had results from that product, and you can hear the energy in their voice. And those people are the ones that are always going to get the results because they have the energy behind what they're selling. So when you think about businesses, I really want to point how small I was thinking back then, because I had a good job. I was making 6 figures. I said, man, I'm going to start this automotive community for people to hang out and talk about cars. And if it earned, $500 extra a month, that'd be like having a free car. Because I had a Trans Am back then; it was brand new. It was like the car note was $500 a month. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, if I can make $500 a month, that'd be like having a free car. So basically, air quotes, my hobby is paid for. And then within 3 months, we're making about $10,000 extra a month from advertising revenue. I was like, oh. So I had one business partner up in Chicago. I was like, man, this is kind of a business now. It's not really looking like a hobby. So maybe we need to take this thing a little bit more serious. So it wasn't until 6 months later that we created an LLC and like started doing trademarks and actually started to treat it like a business, started writing out the processes and the systems for onboarding new marketing, how to do cold outreach, because this was all pre-social. We started that company in 2001, sold it in 2009, exit. So basically, we didn't have Facebook and Instagram, all that. We basically had to do cold outreach by, what do? We go look at the magazines, the car magazines. There's always advertisers in there. So we knew that people that advertise in magazines have budgets. We would call those companies, emails those companies. Like, hey, we've got this website. Maybe you'd be interested in advertising. We can get more people to see your ads for a lot less money than you're spending in magazines. So basically, we positioned ourselves as a better alternative. And that's what we did. And we also realized that the speed of what we could do for advertisers was also more valuable to them. Because think about it, Seven, if you want to go run a magazine ad, even today in any magazine, you're about 2 to 3 months behind the printing point of that magazine because they're developing it 2 to 3 months early, and then it comes out 2 to 3 months later. So things are timely. You have to have these embargoes in place to release new products or new vehicles. Dude, you could have one of your staff people log in and go, boom, here it is today. See what I mean? Like we beat them on time so much and basically made it accessible for them to actually communicate directly to the audience instead of having it do through a magazine. So we kicked the crap out of print magazines, and that's really why most of those aren't around that, because the internet, they didn't adapt properly to have their own communities like that. They thought we're magazines, we're the big media empire, we're always going to be around, people love us. But guys, they weren't willing to go think about the market share they could have had by introducing their own communities and building that. They reacted to us way too late by then. We were so far ahead of them. To give your listeners an idea, we had over 100,000 unique visitors per day on those websites.
Wow.
Per day. Most magazine circulations is 100,000 copies per month. And we had that on a daily basis. And it was timely. It was always the latest and newest information. So we just did things better, man. We just basically said, okay, we grew this thing. It started to scale. We started to have processes. We started to bring in freelancers. We started to have people running the stuff. And literally, it sounds like a lot of different stuff going on, but it was like 1 hour a day for me. Yeah. 1 hour a day. A lot of people are like, hey, why didn't you quit? You're making, multiple six figures from this side business. I think we're clearing about almost $400,000 a year in profit.
Wow.
And they're like, well, why don't you quit? Why would you quit? It's like, because that's not in me. It's like, I try to figure out how I can make the most money possible in the shortest amount of time. Like me going to a job for 8 hours a day and getting paid another multiple six figures really didn't hurt my lifestyle because the business was on the back end. So it's like, why would I quit and take half the income?
Yeah.
So some people do quit. Some people do get lazy, but I was like, dude, I'm on this top of this wave. I'm just going to ride this thing out. Like, why would I quit?
Yeah, that's powerful. So walk us through, what caught my ear was the fact that you said within 3 months you were making 10 grand in ads. How did you make that happen? And how did you build that community so quickly?
So we knew that we looked at our server logs and we could see how many people were viewing the site versus logging into the actual site as a member. And early on, we were seeing about 50% of the people that were what we call lurkers, people that just watch things and read things, but they don't ever register. And we knew that we needed to have registered members to be able to prove to advertisers that we have a massive community available. So we started doing giveaways. We would find a current advertiser and say, hey, we need to entice people to register on the site so that you can also get some more valued listeners and be able to contact them. So it was what I call a win-win-win. So basically we would talk them to giving us a $250 gift certificate that the winner would spend with them as an advertiser. And then we would feature that advertiser as a showcase sponsor for that month to entice registrations. And it was only eligible if you were a member to be able to win that. So basically the person that won the contest got $250 of car parts or whatever they want to spend. And then the sponsor got featured as a sponsor. And then we got memberships because we knew that was the leverage we needed. So if you're wanting to build a movement or a community-based brand, don't think about trying to monetize the audience. Just like this podcast, Evan, you put out a good one, you're sharing value. I've got a podcast. I'm putting out the value. I've got an entrepreneurship group. I don't charge those people. There's thousands of people in there now. Don't monetize your audience. Build your audience by creating value, and then you can monetize putting people in front of that audience later on. So I think a lot of people think about, well, I want to do this paid membership thing and I want to charge people to get in the gate. And you know what? No one ever signs up because they can go to groups like yours or mine and get the same value or better without having to pay. It's like, why would people pay for the information nowadays? Why would people pay for access and stuff like that? So we knew this even in 2001, like, hey, if we want to make more advertising, we need to get more people in there and have the leverage, because now I can compete directly with the magazines. I say, hey, I got this eyeballs showing up every day. Like, do you want some of this action? And that's what we did. So we focused on growth by really just adding contests. And then here's the other thing that for a community. So online, we have business. It's LS1Tech, he mentioned early in the intro. We knew that to build a strong community, it's not about just reporting lines of communication up to the leader. Like, you never want to build a community and stand on the top of the mountain and pound your chest and act like, I'm so awesome, I'm at the top of this thing, and I'm just super awesome. Like, and we see people do that even today on social. And I can tell you, it's never going to work out for those people because they don't get it. To be a community leader, you have to be engaged and participate within the community, so they perceive you as one of the members. That they all know who the leader is. They'll know who the leader is. They don't have to you don't have to yell it all the time and say, I'm the boss and I'm super awesome. So basically participate as a member, contribute, answer questions, engage people. But here's the thing that most people also miss. You have to be willing to create strong bonds between other people within the community, not you, but them. Basically, you need 2 people within your community to become friends.
Yeah.
You need 10 people to become friends within your community. The stronger that you can create those bonds by facilitating conversation or by facilitating live events or having different things in different regions or hotspots where they're related to your brand, all of these feed back into your main brand, which is your website or with the community, your online community. So what we did is we created racing events around the country. So we would look at the hotbeds of activity on our website and we go, okay, we need to have events in New Jersey. We need one in Chicago. We need one to do in LA. We need one in Florida, Bradenton, wherever the hot spots were. Houston, we went and had racing events. We did 3 or 4 a year. And that drew people out from hours and hours and ways that would drive and come to meet the people that they only chat with online. And we knew that they'd become lifelong friends, and they still are. It's been over 20 years, guys. There's lifelong friends that were created. And there was also a lot of businesses. So the other thing is you got to think about creating something that is bigger than you, that supports your dreams, but also supports the dreams of everybody that supports you. And I know it's kind of weird to say that, but let me give you some tangible takeaways. So how did I build something that made other people successful? I became multimillionaire from my businesses, but I also built many, many other multimillionaires that became sponsors or started their businesses and launched them from my website. I've got at least a dozen people that were staff members for me that created their own businesses that were able to advertise to the community. They're multimillionaires nowadays.
Wow.
So my dream was big enough to help them achieve their dream. And you got to think big like that nowadays. So even with 365 Driven entrepreneurship community, I am going to create millions of people that will become very successful in my group. So my dream, my legacy would be to educate people with self-confidence and entrepreneurial skills. But my dream is going to help other people achieve their dream. A lot of people are very short-sighted. They only think about what's in it for me. Me. What's in it for me? How am I going to get paid?
Yeah.
And you start to realize that when you can shift to help other people become what they want, you talk about Napoleon Hill and things like that. That's what they focus on, guys. We get what we want when we help other people achieve what they want. It's not about you. It's always about them.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of 365 Driven and what you're doing now and really helping entrepreneurs, building a community around that and helping them be massively successful. What is your big why behind that?
I think that for me, we always tend to become the hero that we wish we had when we were children. We always revert to the things that we were missing in our lives. And for me, growing up lower middle class, thinking that I had to get a job, busting ass, working full time to pay for college, like really going through the struggle. And guys, I'm a very creative and artistic type person. Me going through an engineering program was a struggle, but I knew that it led to 6 figures. So I was like chasing this carrot that, yes, I'm good at, I became very good at, but it's not what I was really meant to do. So for me, I didn't have advice about business owners. I didn't have advice about entrepreneurship. I didn't even know that was an option. I grew up thinking that business owners were rich people, that only rich people, and we hear bullshit stuff like it takes money to make money. No, guys, it doesn't. It takes effort. It takes knowledge. It takes
Yeah.
execution to make money. Once you have money, yes, it's easier to make money once you have money, but it doesn't take money to make money. That's a big fallacy. People repeat it like sheep, and they use that as a self-limiting belief that keeps them from starting. So if you say stuff like that, and if you say things like time is money, money is time, no, that's another fallacy that was created by society, programmed into your brain, and you believe it because you hear other people saying it, but you'll never hear somebody that's successful tell you that. It's because it's not true. We make money regardless of time, has nothing to do with it. Sure, there are cases where we trade our hours for time. That's absolutely. Sometimes when we start a business, that's essential. But when we build processes and systems and do things in proper ways and build business models, you and I could be sitting here. I'm making thousands of dollars in the background. I don't have to be somewhere. Like, it's not my time. I'm not trading my time. I'm even trading somebody else's time.
Yeah.
There's ways to make other people's time, create the money. So I think that's where I think about it. It's just, how do I get there? And, I hope I answered your question on that one.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's about helping people, realize their full potential and help them break through those limiting beliefs like that. And and you hear it so often, honestly, like many different limiting beliefs, but we've all had to break through those to get to where we are. And any successful person is going to tell you that it takes breaking through limiting beliefs that we place on ourselves. We place these rules on ourselves that have no basis in reality, but we think they do. And so breaking through that is powerful to actually like realizing what you want in life.
Yeah, everybody that's done something that you would like to achieve, it's possible for you. You just have to understand that they followed a process, they put the steps in, they failed a lot. That's the other thing, is that most people don't realize that the successful people, you're only seeing the results of many failures. Most people want to avoid failure. They want to avoid criticism. Let's be honest, they're not even afraid of failure. They're afraid of what their friends and family will say about their failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the main thing that keeps people from starting, is the fear of criticism. But the thing is that even there's a great example, is I always talk about the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. The best batters in the Hall of Fame, the best batters of all time, bat around 30%. That means 7 out of 10 times they walked up to the plate, they struck out or knocked one out. Only 3 times out of 10 that they have success, but they're in the Hall of Fame. You got to think about that, guys. I've tried to start 10 companies, and only 3 of mine, the numbers are even funny how that works out. 3 companies of mine out of 10 became highly successful. But the thing is that nobody even remembers all the failures. Nobody even thinks, even I don't even think about those failures. There's lessons to be learned, but I don't think about them. I don't even remember like some of the names. I was like, dude, I started something. Yeah, I was in that, and it didn't work out, and I closed it down. But the thing is that here's the other funny thing. Like, okay, so even out of those 3 successes, most people will only remember the best success that you've had. You want an example of that? What do you think about when I say the name Elon Musk? Everybody thinks Tesla, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even think about PayPal. PayPal's huge. He started that. They think Tesla, which is bigger now. So think about that. So understand that we are only really remembered by our best achievements. Even if your second best is awesome. You guys heard that I had a 300,000 membership community. I replicated that same business model and built another one in the truck sector that grew to 260,000 people. So it wasn't lightning strikes once. We replicated that, but nobody remembers me or knows me for the second best, which is awesome by its own. See what I mean? So quit dwelling on those potential failures and worrying about what people are going to say. Keep getting back up and swinging, man.
That's awesome. I've never heard that put that way, where it's like, people mainly just remember your best successes and your best accomplishments. I think there's a lot of merit to that, because it teaches you to not worry so much about the failures and just focus on striving for your best version of you and your best business or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
That's right.
So in 365 Driven, what we talked about before we jumped on, investing in ourselves, and I know you're a big believer in that. So could you talk us through kind of what investing in yourself has done as far as growing your brand and your business and your mindset?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people, especially in the entrepreneurship space, they focus on financial success. And I'll tell you that if you're chasing millions of dollars thinking that you're going to be happier, it's not the case. I know some really miserable people who are very wealthy, even in local areas. I've known people who didn't have money and they were miserable, and they got money and they were still miserable. That's an internal problem. That's not a money problem. So whoever you are right now, if you're pessimist and just negative and things like that, and maybe you don't have the money, but maybe you luck into it or you figure it out and you do get money, guess what? You're still going to have that level of negativity and pessimism about you, because that's an internal thing. You got to go get fixed with that. There's psychologists, psychiatrists, things that can help you, coaches that can break you out of that. It's usually self-limiting beliefs or insecurities that kind of cause those kind of thoughts, societal programming that we're exposed to as children. Go get that crap out of your head, figure out what truly makes you happy, and you're going to find that. So that's the money thing. Let's not focus on financial success with 365 Driven. My show, we talk about wealth, health, relationships, and mindset. To me, mindset, which is most of this episode, is the foundation of everything. If you don't have the right mind, you're not going to have the success. You're not going to get the results. We have to get that fixed. Kind of goes back to the happiness thing, right? Relationships are important. A lot of people will sacrifice their relationships with friends, their family, their loved ones, their spouse, their children, to go chase financial success. So the balance is off. I don't believe that there's a thing that we call, balanced lifestyle or work-life balance, because everybody has a different gauge on that. I don't think we can judge other people on how to do that. I don't think that's equal works for everybody. So don't limit yourself to that kind of belief. Some people just operate differently. Accept who you are. Go rock that. Health is the main thing that I think that most people really, just basically ignore. Health is the most important thing that there is. It's funny because I'll tell you that, and I'm not saying that because I actually, I do go work. I'm very fit. I'm 47. I'm the strongest I've ever been. In my 20s and my teens, I was an athlete. In my 30s, when I started to get more financial success, I started to get kind of lazy. And I started to have these lower back pains and knee pains and made a bunch of excuses for not going to the gym. And around 35 to 40 was really my decline in health, where my stomach started sticking out farther than my chest. And I was like, dude, what is this crap? Most men with the belly, it's like, dude, it's like, what is this? Like, this is not who I am. I turned 40 and it's like, this is not who I am. Am I really going to let myself go at age 40? Like, why am I looking like this? I've never been this way. So I really started pushing aside these excuses, and I started pushing myself to eat better and exercise and do things. And I've had so much more energy, guys. It's crazy. Those aches and pains that I used to have in my 30s, that I think that, I was doing air quotes, I'm just getting old, can't do what I used to do. Because we hear that same self-limiting belief everybody's talking about, guys. Like, my knees would pop, my ankles would pop. If I had to walk downstairs, my knees would hurt, things like that. And what I think one of the eye-opening experiences I had was that I was going to a company and I was running late because of traffic, and I had to get to this meeting, and I had time to get there, but there was a long escalator, one of those long escalators that's moving. It's about 2 floors tall. It's a really long one. So it was going slow. I was like, man, I'm just going to start walking this escalator. So here I'm walking up this moving escalator, and I got to the top and I was winded. I got winded walking up a moving escalator. And then I got to the top. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is pathetic. I can't walk 2 floors without being winded. And I was like, this is not going to work anymore, guys. I used to run, I used to play football, I used to do all kinds of things. Like, this is not going to work. So basically I worked through the pain, and I started, basically working slowly into that. It took probably 6 months to finally get into that routine and not making excuses and going even when I didn't feel like it. Guys, the thing is, I don't feel like it half the time I go nowadays. I go almost every day now, 6 days a week. Half the time I don't feel like going it, but the thing is that I look at the future version of Tony that we talked about. I said, what would the future version of me say to myself by saying, I don't feel like going today? And then also think about the victory log in sorts of this way. Have I ever left the gym and regretted going that day? The answer is no.
Probably not.
I've never, ever regretted going to the gym. So I think about that. So I think about, okay, I don't feel like going today, but I've never regretted leaving. So I focus on that.
Yeah.
And think, okay, I'm going to go find that. I'm going to go get that reward. I'm going to go get that result. So it's just all about that stuff, Evan. It's putting yourself, thinking about it, and just executing.
That's awesome. Well, I love what you've done with 365 Driven. You're creating an awesome community. an awesome podcast, really providing massive value to people. So guys, check out Tony's podcast, check out his community, 365 Driven. So
awesome.
Yes. So Tony, I feel like we could keep going and we could have a 5-hour podcast. But let's jump into our monumental questions.
Awesome, man.
What does success mean to you?
Success to me means being really just having the ability to do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want. I think it's the ultimate freedom to me is success. I don't think we measure that in dollar figures. I think if you can be completely happy at lower incomes, that's perfect, dude. Find that happiness. I think too many people focus on the financial success to trade in their happiness.
Yeah.
If you can be happy and successful, boom, that's more important. I love that area, but don't ever feel guilty about wanting to have more. Don't ever feel that way, because financial means is having more options in life.
Yeah. And having more impact too.
That's right. You can't make impact being broke. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So what about daily habit or morning rituals?
I don't subscribe to there being, I know there's books like Hal Elrod's like Miracle Morning and things like that.
Right.
And everybody's always trying to look for the secret sauce that why they're not getting the results that they're getting. So they start to look at guys like me and try to figure out what's different. Why do they do it? Maybe if I mimic them, I'll get the same result. No, guys, everybody's different. So I'm anti routine sometimes like that, because I don't believe in some of the stuff I read. I think everybody's different. I think especially those of you that have the benefit of working from home, you're going to find that there's certain times of the day where your brain is like lit up and on fire and imagination and creative.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, that's the morning. So between 5:30, usually when I get up, till about noon, and that's the time frame we're actually recording this podcast, my mind is on fire. I want to be creative and I want to be engaging. I want to write my content. I want to do my videos. I want to write my next book. I want to do all these kind of things, anything that's mind related. It would be a huge, colossal waste for me to go to the gym right now. Huge. Because I know later in the day, around 3 to 5, I'm kind of brain dead. Usually that's when I go to the gym. I was like, okay, I'm brain dead. So now I can go just plug in some earbuds, listen to podcasts or audiobooks, and go work out and hear things and be stimulated again at the same time. So I kind of guard my creative time. And then I use the brain dead time to go be physical, where some people are like, oh, you got to get up and you got to make your bed and you got to go run your mile and you got to meditate. It's like, no, you don't. There's people who have become highly successful doing whatever they do, but they've also learned how to guard their precious time and they understand how their body works. So if you're a night owl and you like to stay up late and code and do things and create and write, like, dude, that's you. Don't think that you have to conform to what other people are doing. So do what makes it feel right. And here's another tip I'll say that most people also like to shun. Guys, it's like, I'll go take a nap in the middle of the day, 30 minutes sometimes. That's the beauty of being able to work at home. Because here's the thing, we're societal programmed. Like, we have a job. We can't obviously go take a nap unless we work at Google or somewhere that's progressive that has those kind of things available. Yeah. So we kind of badmouth people like, oh, you got to go take a nap. And this like society programming us again, like, oh, that's bad. That's lazy. Air quotes, like, you're just being lazy. Here's the thing, guys. If you're listening to this and you're working, you guys know between like 2 and 5, like, we're struggling. Like, it's hard to like function. We're brain fog. The food, maybe ate too many carbs or too much protein, like, whatever it is, like, it's causing you just to really start to drag, and you're starting to watch the clock and you're like, man, 5 o'clock can't get here soon enough. And you're really struggling, but you had to sit at a desk at a job. So you can't obviously take a nap without getting fired. So we've been programmed for decades of our lives to think that it's wrong to go refresh or rejuvenate. So to me, the exact same things happen to me sometimes, where I feel like I'm really dragging, and I could sit here at this desk and just drag out and not really be very productive at all for the next 3 hours, and just really like read things and go, man, I don't even remember what I just read because I'm just not in it.
Yeah.
Or I can go lay down for 30, 40 minutes and sacrifice that amount of time. And then I'm pop back up and I'm ready to rock again. And for the next 2 hours, I'm highly productive again. So I will sacrifice 30 or 40 minutes to go get a nap to really just push the reset button to get 2 hours of high productivity instead of dragging ass for 3 hours.
Yeah, that's very timely that you're saying that, because my fiance and I literally had that same talk yesterday. We're like, if if you're not feeling it, if you're not in the zone, if you're cluttered in your mind, then just go for a walk or get out, like move or do something,
Do
take a nap,
something.
like do something other than what you're doing right now, because it's clearly not where you should be. It's not your highest and best use of your time.
Yeah,
You're
listen to your
not going to be
body.
productive. Yeah.
Listen to your body. Your body's going to tell you everything it needs. It's going to tell you when it's hungry. It's going to tell you when it's thirsty. It's going to tell you when you should get some rest. It's going to tell you, so yeah, definitely don't go sleep all day, but set an alarm.
Yeah.
If you sleep longer than an hour of a nap, usually you wake up feeling like crap. Let's be honest. It's like your body's like telling you now, it's like, hey, you overslept.
Yeah.
So I find, 30, 40 minutes is like kind of a perfect sweet spot. It's like, you just got to doze off and then basically wake up and you're ready to go again. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I love it. What about favorite book or book you're currently reading?
So I would say that one of my favorite books is Mindset by Carol Dweck. And the thing is that I'm a very growth mindseted person. I'm very positive, and I've always helped people, and I always try to see the more optimistic side of things. And even when I read that book, I'm thinking like, oh, it's a mindset book. It talks about fixed versus growth mindset. I got this in spades. Like, it's just going to be a refresher course. But what it did is it really enhanced the knowledge that I already had. It enhanced the awareness, or increased the awareness that I already had, to catch myself at times when I do exhibit or think in a fixed mindset, which is a negative growth mind. So there's situations she'll list out in this book. She's exceptional at communicating these everyday occurrences and how we react to things. And then she'll go, that's fixed mindset creeping in. That's growth mindset. And you're like, holy crap. Like, I say that sometimes. And you're like, I can't believe I still do that. I'm a pretty positive person. And so that book really, I think everybody should learn that. I think even if you've got kids in high school, like, give them a copy of the book. It's called Mindset, Carol Dweck. It's a bestseller. It's on Amazon. You're going to have people like read this and they're going to go, oh my God, that's me. And if you read that book and it's like 80% you, like, you better like get that fixed. Like that goes back to the mindset thing.
Yeah.
And you are the one that's in your own way. You're the one that's holding yourself back. That book is going to help you. It's a psychology book. If you look at the cover, it looks really boring, but it's not. The contents of the book is definitely worth everything that you're going to read inside it.
Well, if it's got Tony's stamp of approval, I got to read it.
Yeah. And to get it on audiobook, if you consume books, like I listen to books when I work out, I listen to books when I drive or commute.
Yeah.
So I always find time. Like, I basically replaced music. The last 5 years, I replaced music. I love music.
Yeah.
But I love learning more than I love music. So I basically replaced all music time with earphones and learning by books and podcasts. And it's been a game changer for me. So get it on audio, listen while you go, listen while you drive. Everybody's got Bluetooth now. Listen and learn, man.
I love it. Yeah. I think that book's actually, my dad gave me that book. I need to read it now.
Yep.
I love it. Well, Tony, amazing episode. Tons and tons and tons of value here. Really excited to, share this with our community. And so how can our community reach out to you or connect with you?
My website is 365driven.com. So 365driven.com. And from there, you'll find links to all my social channels. I'm very active on most of them, and usually with 365 Driven. So basically, looking forward to it. If you got any feedback from this, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to me on my website. And Evan, thank you for having me on, man. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was awesome. Well, guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it on social media, tag Tony 365 Driven, tag myself. Let us know you're listening. Let us know what you got out of today's episode. And do not forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Monumental. And with that, have a monumental day.